Welcome to Revive Ministries Podcast. Today we are continuing the theme Finding Our Refuge in Recovery, finding the process of healing as a safe place of refuge. Safe place means many different things for many different people. I feel it may remind us that the only way we really feel safe is when we're in an environment that can provide sometimes the healing that we need. Now, today, we're continuing that discussion with a returning guest, again, Saeda, all the way from Palestine. Thank you for joining us in this discussion.
Thank you so much for having me.
I just want to share a disclaimer for all those around the world in crisis. The suicide prevention lifeline in the U.S. is 1-800-273-8255. But wherever you are around the world, we do encourage you to find what resources there is. I always say people say it better than I do. Alice Walker says it this way: the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. What comes to mind when you hear this quote?
Sometimes we forget how powerful we are. Like, we don't have to be somebody who's rich. We don't have to be somebody who's famous. Mm-hmm. We are powerful within ourselves. And if we forget that, then we become powerless and we give up any power that we actually have, any voice, we give up on ourselves if we forget that we are powerful.
Yeah, it's like when we define the words or the things that matter to us. One thing that has been told lately a lot to me is no one will, if you don't respect your time, no one else will. It's kind of funny. It's a different perspective, and there's no shortcuts to it. And when we think about safe place, a lot of times we think about physical portion, like a house, all that, and that's important. But when we think about our mindset, of what we allow to kind of stay in our mind's eye as we kind of proceed through life the best we can, it can be problematic, especially when we don't feel safe anywhere. Saeda, I have just to further this discussion, what has your experience been regarding maintaining, I guess, a safe place in your own mindset? And what has your experience been that you feel has worked positively, or let me say negatively, towards this attempt or approach?
Negatively is me thinking that any place is safe.
Yeah.
And for me to, I guess, connecting the power and safe place together, forgetting that I have the power to choose what's my safe place and recognizing what's my safe place. And it's really hard to come to terms that sometimes the places that you wish are safe are not, because that can just put you in a darker space. But when you find this when you find a safe place that you can openly be in a healthier mindset, you can see the changes. You could see from how you were in a dark spot in the place that you thought is your safe zone to a place that is actually your safe zone, and recognizing that is very crucial and important.
Yeah, it's when I was in the military, I worked on aircraft. I remember one of the things is you can't just use the same tool for everything. Sometimes we kind of feel like, and sometimes it makes it even more problematic. Some things don't require one kind of tool, like in our lives, when it comes to coping or when it comes to, making these changes in our lives. Sometimes it's more subtle. Sometimes it's saying, I'm gonna take a walk today. I'm gonna put my phone away. I'm gonna take time for me. I'm gonna invest in me, and it's very hard culturally because there's different cultures involved and different expectations we may have or what we think we may need to do. I want to share a word with you. It's vacilando. It's actually Spanish, and it's different translations, but it says traveling when the experience is more important than the destination. Some Latin American Spanish people, well, it's different, but basically that's the concept. I remember going to the car and just not using the GPS and just driving. it's therapeutic, at the same
Yeah,
time.
that is therapeutic. That is actually very helpful.
Sometimes we're so focused on where we want to be or where we would like to be, but we forget about the journey or being present itself.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on these concepts? And have you struggled like many of us or even myself on this concept?
with like just having to like leave, like travel to a different place in order to like cleanse myself.
Well, just
It
being
doesn't even have
present.
to be,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be somewhere like far away. Like usually whenever I'm in like a headspace, I would go out for a jog. Like you just need to change your location, change the atmosphere and the environment.
Yeah, it's just allowing yourself that time. Some of the people I work with, or I work in the mental health field, is I ask maybe a client, "Do you have a hobby?" Like I can have a hobby. I feel like a lot of times we don't feel we have this. Like you say, go for a jog. It could be something else. Whatever it may be, I feel that can provide that kind of, I guess, safer place in our mindset. I do like what you're saying because it's very individualized when we think about this concept. It's not one size fits all. So
true.
Anything that you've seen negatively when that well, not negatively. What has kind of prevented you from maybe saying, okay, I'm gonna put the it's easy for us to say, okay, let's put the GPS away. We're kind of, or whatever to tell us. It's very easy to say. It's hard because we want some level of certainty of where we're going. But I think having goals and defining when I need time for my own headspace, I think is different. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I feel like I'm on the same page as you, to be honest with you. Sometimes I need to put the GPS on and just drive. And other times I'm just like, okay, what's the next point? What aren't I supposed to be doing this now? And that takes me to dark spot because I'm like, I should have had this done. I should have had, because you see everything, like people around you getting things completed, and you're just like, okay, why aren't I doing this? And that can just like, hurt your mental health too.
And I think at least with coping skills, there's the practical one. Like if I break my arm, Saeda, I'm gonna go to the doctor. I'm gonna get casted. But if I lose a loved one or something happens tragically, there's no shortcuts. I can't go. There's like medication may be helpful, therapy may be helpful, but it's a combination. It's very individualized. And I feel that's different. The practical and I've seen it backwards. Say that I've seen people use the mental coping skills during a practical. So they're like they have a serious condition and they avoid it. They're treating it coping like, oh, I'm just gonna just let it go. Like
I've seen that a lot.
Processing it when they just need you were like, well, just go to the doctor. You're not feeling well, go to the doctor. And I've seen the vice versa. Someone who maybe just lost someone, they're treated like it's shopping list of what they need to do. And then it doesn't work.
What's on the next on the list? What's going to happen the next day?
There's this word, I have it on the screen. It's really hard to say. It's Dutch. So, obviously it's hard to say. Strutsvolgenpolitiek. It says, it's called ostrich politics. It says acting like you don't notice when something bad happens and continue on regardless as you are normally would.
I do that sometimes.
I think all of us do that in some regards. It's kind of like we kind of say it's some sort of resilience or cope, but at the same time, eventually the matter, especially if it's personal, individualized to you, you're gonna have to deal with it. You know what I mean?
And I feel like if you wait longer, it becomes like it's more spiraling for you.
And it kind of leads to that question, because I feel a lot of times there's various degrees, like we say, it's individualized, but what is a danger you feel if we continue to get complacent in our approach, as the word suggests, ostrich politics? I'm not going to try that. Complacent in our approach, as the word suggests, in our own healing and recovery. I feel like a lot of us, some degrees, I would say, just to give us a little grace, I would say,
Mm.
some things take time for us to get there, right? But sometimes
Yeah,
we love the toxic comfortability of things.
that is so true. That is sadly so true.
So, what do you think the danger is? I think we gotta give us some grace. We gotta say like, okay, I know I'm messing up, but I'm moving towards that. And then there's
Yeah.
another one that's totally like, my head's in the sand. I'm not gonna
Like
do
that is so. I hate to admit that. I sometimes mean like the world can be like on fire, and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
oh.
I just remember, you've been on before. I just remember a lot of times it was COVID, like before I hear people like, I'm watching the news till 4 a.m. I'm like, you'll be the most informed sick person I know. There's only some like hope. I feel there has to be a level of uncertainty to have hope.
There has to be. I mean, if you, there has to be. You don't want to know like 24/7 and like know every detail. Like that can also be negative.
And I think uncertainty actually the idea of hope requires a level of uncertainty.
Exactly.
Yeah. I just I want to have you listen to this quote. I want you kind of tell me what you think. This quote's from Yasmin Mogahed. It says, "Resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going." Kind of reminds me of Martin Luther King's one. But what comes to mind when you hear this quote?
To be honest with you, for a bit of my life, I was numb, which is probably a common thing for everyone.
Yeah.
But so when you kind of wake up from the numbness, I guess you know how they say a caterpillar becomes into like a butterfly. That's how it kind of feels like.
Yeah.
But when you start to like realize that you've experienced so much and you can feel like you should be able to like accept like 1, 2, 3 happened instead of saying, oh, this didn't happen, what you talking about? Like instead of ignoring it, you just face it head on and just say, yeah, okay, this happened. And even if you fall, even if you fail, you're still going straight. You still keep going. You still keep fighting for whatever it is at the end of the road.
I say this a lot recently is that accountability is only a bad word when you don't have a safe place.
Yes.
That's it. Like it's not a bad thing if I want to be better at something. And sometimes we forget that things take time. People in the Olympics, or we just had the Olympics winter. There's a lot of training behind that. There's a lot of pain, sweat, and tears. It's not easy. Some of the most, I would say, the most notable memories or notable things in our life are hard. And like you mentioned, like being numb. Like I remember, I used to say when my teens, and I say desensitize the sensitivities because I thought that was so strong. But at the same time, it does pay a price because you don't reflect on anything around you. So what happens is you become a little impulsive, not feeling good. You don't know why. You have no insight of why you don't take the time to, why you don't feel you have time to say why. That kind of thing kind of transcends. But before we kind of continue on this train, I want to ask you, Saeda, do you want to, to those listening and those watching, is there anything that you want to share on this topic, or anything that's going on with you as we kind of go forward into wrapping this theme up?
So I guess what I'm going to say is, as a wise person once said to me when I was younger, that it does get better, even though when they told me like, oh, it gets better, and when you're younger, you're like, okay, but when? But like when? I'm like, hello. At some point, it does get better. Like you learn to live with any kind of like, sometimes it'd be a wave of sadness, and then instead of you just hiding under your covers and crying, you learn to live. You learn to get out of your bed and do the daily activities that you need to do. You know, it does get better.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're so close to the elephant, or the goals feel so far away. But I say this lately too, not only to people I work with, but to myself. Even like those days when you know those memes where the person's trying to get their car, ice is everywhere, they keep falling. It's like, you know what I'm talking about? No,
those are funny.
Okay, yeah, those Monday ones. You know, I just try to tell myself, I want to be. It may seem overwhelming what we're going through or whatever the concept is. Try to be better today, whatever that looks like.
Exactly.
That's it. Just try to be better today. You know, I always kind of use, but I'm gonna use this one comedian. It's kind of funny. I watched it on Netflix. In the military, they used to say braces suck. I thought it was funny. He said when I was a kid with his brother, they were driving down and they see McDonald's signs, the arches. The father, it's John Mulaney. The comedian.
Oh, I love him.
Okay, he goes up to the father goes up and they go to McDonald's, do the drive-thru. They're all yay McDonald's, and then he gets black coffee and drives off. I thought that was hilarious. Sometimes we get black coffee and we just keep going. We don't get what
That's
we
so
want.
True. That sums up life right there.
Yeah, sometimes it is. But one thing I noticed, and I don't know if it's the same thing for you, but when I know it's gonna suck, like if I know, like this might be hard, you can prepare your mind a little bit. And it's not that it's easier, but you're not reacting. You know, that's problem.
Yeah, I do that. That's similar. Yeah, I can wake up in the morning like, yep, today's gonna be one of those days.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, it is comforting. You know, that we have the ability to move forward. Sometimes it may seem it's good to reflect on what we have accomplished, but it's also not good to stay there. You know, it's good to kind of, I would say, to kind of end my thought and then hear your final thoughts. Like Viktor Frankl once said, I used them before, but I just remember reading someone else's interpretation, and they said one of the things that the people who survived while he was in the concentration camps and was they will go out to the other people who were in the concentration camps just with them. They'll give half their bread. And people will look at them like, you're giving half your sustenance. But the thing that Viktor Frankl noted was they thought there was another day. The other ones didn't. And that was the difference. The people who survived felt that there was another day. That was it. So,
and he did it.
That was the hope. And I feel sometimes, like at the very minimum, as this podcast is an outreach, surely, not proselytizing. That is the thing that I want to inspire those who are listening, that there is hope. Like you said, it does get better, but at the same time, we sometimes have to be better to ourselves so we can provide this safe place.
That's the most important thing.
So what would your final thoughts you would like to share as we wrap up?
I think I liked what you said at the end. Sometimes we have to be our own safe place too, because sometimes we're like our biggest enemies.
Yeah. Accountability is not a bad word when it's a safe place. I just want to say thank you, Saeda. Always, I feel like returning guests makes me feel like I'm actually doing something right here. But thank you for.
I love these podcasts. I actually listen to them all the time. I love how honestly it's inspiring, all the work you do.
Well, thank you, Saeda, for being a part of this. I wanted to share with those who to remember to stay updated with all things Revive Ministries through the various platforms, ReviveMinistriesFL.com. This is goodbye from Revive Ministries, leaving you with the last quote from Mahatma Gandhi. He says, "Every worthy act is difficult. Ascent is always difficult. Descent is easy and often slippery."